up at night, yeah. Make all the demons quiet, yeah. We were built to thrive, yeah. I think that we've all had enough. What keeps you up at night, yeah. Make all the demons quiet, yeah. We were built to thrive, yeah. I think that we've all had enough. Yeah, I think that we've all had enough. Sick of dealing with the old plan. They know that we're calling it wrong. You got me like, oh yeah, I think that we've all had enough. Sick of dealing with the old plan. They know that we're calling it wrong. Hey, it's too late to try to go contain it. A generation fueled by creation. We live lives on a small screen nation. We control the airwaves, no negotiation. I refuse to think we need saving. Something good will come from creation. And when we think that the world is too anxious, we'll adapt, evolve, survive, and save it. What keeps you up at night, yeah. Make all the demons quiet, yeah. We were built to thrive, yeah. I think that we've all had enough. What keeps you up at night, yeah. Make all the demons quiet, yeah. We were built to thrive, yeah. I think that we've all had enough. Yeah, I think that we've all had enough. Sick of dealing with the old plan. They know that we're calling it wrong. You got me like, oh yeah, I think that we've all had enough. Sick of dealing with the old plan. They know that we're calling it wrong. Hey, oh yeah, I think that we've all had enough. Sick of dealing with the old plan. They know that we're calling it wrong. You got me like, oh yeah, I think that we've all had enough. Sick of dealing with the old plan. They know that we're calling it wrong.
Birds flying high, you know how I feel. Sun in the sky, you know how I feel. Breeze drifting on by, you know how I feel. It's a new dawn, it's a new day, it's a new life for me.
Turn on your mind now, tune into the feed. We're planting digital flowers from a single tiny seed. Yeah, power to the collective in the data and the soul. The hive mind's getting louder, finding voice and control.
What is going on, Hive? I hope everybody had a fantastic Monday and a great weekend. Make sure. All right, we are coming in loud and clear. Welcome to the Hive Mind. If this is your first time tuning in, this is a contrarian thinking live stream where we are not afraid to think past the headlines, question the narrative, and if you are easily offended or rattled on behalf of others, this is probably not going to be the stream for you. I would encourage you to stay, to open your mind, to think deeper and longer and harder about all of the crazy shit that's going on, specifically in this Idaho 4 case, and also the rest of the world. We're living in the craziest time ever. So thank you for tuning in and being here in the Hive this evening. I have Devil's Advocates backstage, as always, on Monday nights. And I can tell you that the term bombshell for what he has might not even do it justice. And I'm going to leave it at that. I'd really like to have DA truly break it or talk about what it is that he has experienced his time out at CrimeCon, some of the things that he had overheard and saw there in person. But nonetheless, we are going to be getting into it, and I want to say what's up to everybody. Heatherly, how are you doing? Blue-Eyed Candy, good to see you. Kelly King. Jennifer Henry's doing Grey Goose. Love it. Uma, how are you doing? Mrs. Birdie. Nicole, good to see you. April in Texas is tuning in. UFO Dogs creeping in the basement. River Bear Teacup, good to see you. Candy 420. Becky, how are you? Okay, Wolf, 420 Angel. America's right, 1111. I missed you guys as well. Evening, 1-1. Pups, love you. Hello. Vibrations from Mir is tuning in. Yeah, I agree, Brooke. Mondays are the best. There's no doubt about it. DA brings the energy. Sue from South Africa's here. Gang. What's going on, Crown? Good to see you. OG TikTok, Hiver. True to it. Charity is here. And who else we got? Dawn, good to see you. Donna Speaks Truth is here. Shay, Lakin versus the World. Court's here. Squirrel, Nest, Gabby Girl, K Kitty 21. No talkie before coffee. I love it. Pups, love you. Jojo Bird, Big Red. Jay Gamble's tuning in. Cole's here. What it do? LFG. And Lisa, good to see you. Thank you for tuning in. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to bring DA up a little bit earlier tonight just so that we have time to get into this. It's going to be a great discussion. And Amanda, thank you so much for the super chat, as well as Blue Eyed Candy. You all rock for those donations. So without further ado, I'm going to bring up Devil's Advocates. Here he is. What up, dude?
Hey, what's going on? First, I need to check how's my lipstick tonight.
It's a little bit, that shade's a little bit too light, probably for some
Okay,
people's likings.
I was trying to tone it down. You keep busting my nuts for the lipstick, so I thought I'd tone it down a little bit and not have wings before I come on the show.
Come on, man. It's like that's a tradition at this point. We have to make one lipstick joke, otherwise the stream
People are
feels
gonna
off.
really think that I put on lipstick before coming onto your show, and it's gonna become a weird thing.
That might be a weird thing. It probably is not good marketing, but nonetheless, you are you're streaming right now from a hotel room. You are coming back from CrimeCon. How was that?
It was awesome. It was enormous. I have never been to Denver, so seeing Denver was cool. I got a personal tour from a local in Denver, and that was cool. Went down Denver. CrimeCon was in a building called the Gaylord Rockies. I don't know if you're super familiar with it, but this building you have that place is as big as a Vegas casino. It is enormous.
It's massive. You don't even have to leave the property.
Yeah, it was I saw it compared to the other building. There's big buildings around it, and it's massive. But anyways, CrimeCon was huge. A lot of high energy. I was warned before I went to CrimeCon that it's a very pro prosecution, very pro law enforcement, and they weren't kidding. Although I'm kind of hoping to get on a panel maybe next year in Vegas. We'll see, and be able to give a little bit of the alternative side, but we'll see. But it was really great. I got tons of stuff I could share with you about CrimeCon.
Yeah, man. I'm excited for the little bit that you and I did chat before the stream. I'm excited to really dive into some of the stuff that you had overheard there. And real quick, before we do, if you guys are new here, go to my YouTube channel, please press subscribe. So just scroll down into the chat quick, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. I have all my other links in the channel as well. I posted a Substack today on how ongoing investigation is really just ongoing lies. And I believe that with everything in court cases, there should be open source, especially when it comes to crimes that were committed out in public. And these are the rest of my links. All of my streams are free, so pressing that subscribe button is the best way to support the channel. And DA, where can people find you at, brother?
Yeah, so thank you very much. I have a website, which is my primary channel, and normally I update it every weekend, but I've been in CrimeCon, so I cut some corners. So devilsadvocates.info is my website. I try to link to a lot of my stuff there. I've got a Substack channel, The Devil's Docket. I've got the YouTube channel, of course. I got TikTok, I got Instagram, I got Facebook. A lot of those are Devil's Advocates 2024. I'm trying to get that branded the same on all platforms so you can find me. I'm working on that. We're trying to make everything better. I'm a little bit behind you, Birdie, on marketing, so I'm working on it, but yeah, I'm there.
I love it. I love it, man. Well, we have been doing something a little bit different in the Hive, DA. I think you're going to like this one. This is what's called the Hive Mind Trigger. Have you seen this yet?
No.
So rather than just doing a Discord question of the day, I wanted the Hive to tune in and be like, kept on their toes. Like, what has Birdie got for us tonight? So I've been doing a variety of different things to kind of start to get the chat involved. As you all know, the Hive Mind one of the, if not the strength of the Hive is the chat. And so getting the chat involved early and often is what I want to do. And this is a fun way to do that. I have a spin wheel that's going to spin around whatever number it lands on is the question that the chat has to answer. Now,
this isn't going to be like meatspin.com or anything, right? You have been watching for 27 spins. I got caught on that earlier.
Dude, do you know this is a real story about meatspin.com, unfortunately for me.
No, I don't know the history.
Yeah. My little brother ruined my MacBook from something that was like that. Like the second that the screen opened up, you saw exactly what it sounds like. Okay. Dude, so I'm in college. I have to show my mom this because I had gotten that MacBook as a high school graduation gift. So like, you know, when you get your first laptop or like a MacBook, it's like, that's a prized possession. You take that shit with you everywhere. Yeah. I was furious. And it was just some sort of like virus or whatever site it was that he did. And he's like admitting it, but I don't want to go into Best Buy. Like my dad doesn't want to go into Best Buy. Nobody wants to go in there. So my mom, like, bless her heart, she's like, I'll just do it. So I could see her like in the back area by the tech guy, like open the laptop quick and like show him what the problem is. And then like shuts it.
You know, I'm not going to do it. I don't think, but I have some really embarrassing stories about laptops and passwords that shouldn't be shared, but had to be shared and things like that. So I've got my own woes, kind of like yours, where you're like, I don't want to have to show this screen right now. But, you know.
Well, now you have to tell us.
Well, no, I actually can't tell that one. I don't think I have the nerve. I've got a lot of nerve. I've told some doozies on here, but I don't think I have the nerve to tell that story.
Yes, exactly. Well, so the questions that we got today are: what's the wildest lie you've ever told as an adult? What's your hometown's darkest secret? What's the dumbest hill you'll die on? What's the pettiest thing you've ever done to win an argument? And I'm going to go ahead and we will spin the wheel here.
Nice. Look at this. Look at you.
Ooh, this should be an interesting one. What is your hometown's darkest secret?
Ooh.
Obviously, nobody.
Are we waiting for the Hive to answer that? Or are we?
No, you can answer it. I'm going to start putting some up on the screen.
Okay, I'm going to think about that. What's my hometown's darkest secret? Oh, I do know what the yeah.
One says Rex Huberman or Rex. So I'm assuming one's out in the Long Island area.
Long Island, yeah, Long Island from
Kelly said Tiggle Bitties.
Tiggle bit. Oh my God, we can't start with Tiggle Bitties. I just got started, and by the way, CrimeCon was loaded. Anyways.
Oh Jesus.
I mean, first of all, true crimers are 75% women. It was a good show. Wow. It was a good show.
I mean, that's pretty crazy. I mean, there's some crazy ones in here that I've already seen. Like I've seen, tomato patch murder. Latitude says cow tipping. Must be Midwest, I'm guessing. Do you have one of the darkest things?
Yeah, but it's not exciting. I grew up in the Tri-Cities, and we're famous for helping build the bombs that bombed Hiroshima and Nagasaki, and it was all secret, and we kicked a bunch of people off the land that were there homesteading and just forced them to leave and forced them off their property to take over so we can build the bomb. So that's kind of our dark secret, although it's not a secret for history buffs, but we had a major part in that war, so.
Man. That's crazy. That's crazy too. And Luna just said town cop was involved in murdering his wife and her boyfriend. Everyone knows, but he covered it up.
Wow. We should get him on the show.
Wild. Yeah, I don't know. So one that happened in my hometown, I'm speculating on this. I've never proven it, but I just remember this girl that I had gone to high school with. Her brother was found on the tracks after getting hit by a train, and it was. Oh. It was so out of like character and so out of left field for him, and like the toxicology made no sense, and there was minimal investigation. And I remember her saying like she's like somebody murdered him. He did not commit suicide. He did not do this, which I have always thought that about like the train track type suicides. Like that is a way to just completely like carnage the body, make it way harder to have somebody figure it out, and it's very easy to say, oh, you were a drunk high school kid and you stumbled onto the tracks, and you know, so that's probably the darkest one that I think. It's not been like confirmed, obviously, but I mean, we had last week, DA, We had
Yeah.
what's the wildest nickname you've ever had?
Yeah.
Dude, you needed to have been on that stream. You would have been losing your mind. There was like the last one was Mouth of the South. So, anyways, I digress. I digress. Well, let's get in. I got two quick high mind finds, DA, and then the first one is from Squeeze. Interesting if this camera actually exists, as there is no documents that mention it. It does kind of look like a camera. I've always wondered in general about how common Ring doorbell cameras are on properties and just most properties now. Even if you're the tenant and you rent, I feel like you can have one on the outside of your door, and it's very normalized, even if you're not a homeowner. You know what I'm saying?
Right. Yeah.
So does anybody know about this one? Have you heard of like the 712 camera?
No. That's why I come to your channel to get educated.
Thank you. Appreciate that. but that is interesting. I mean, I don't know if that is one. I don't know if Squeeze confirmed that is a camera, or if he was just rather trying to get people's thoughts on, does that look like one? And when you zoom in any further than this, it kind of just goes to hell with the photo. But
I'm making somebody nauseous with my rocking back and forth. I usually don't stand, and I'm all pacing, and they're like, "Stop rocking!" All right, I'll work on that. Sorry, I can't do it.
You're good, brother. You're good. You can move around. And then this was just wild. So this is, I'll say it was like a collab of a Hive Mind find. This was in our Discord thread. So if you have not joined the Discord, please go and join that. That is where I pull these Hive Mind finds from. And Luna Bliss and Ample Spark kind of collabed on this, and they had said, does anybody remember a news coverage in front of 112 King Road that said there was a group of students that had a camera recording in front of the house for a school project? And This is the original screen. Somebody found the screenshot from the University of Idaho on November 23rd, and I blurred the names out just because I don't know if this dude is whatever, but if you go on the Discord, you can see the names. But it says, I just found out my remote photography group has video from a tripod that was stationed behind the house. It was recorded from 8 p.m. to 8 a.m. and shows a woman running from the side of the house as a truck entered the driveway. She ran away from the house and right by her tripod at approximately, almost, but not completely accurate or exact, roughly 2 a.m. A group member removed the tripod, and I don't know who has the video. It is the group's right to not disclose why we record, which is creepy. Pause. But why? But we would send in recordings in special circumstances. And they said, well, then call the police and give them your information. And the group member did report the video was sent to the ISP. Our group has been removed from Facebook for policy violations. So What is that?
I mean, like if you were illegally filming somebody's house, then I could see where a social media would take it down for violating somebody's privacy or whatever. So I could see that, but I don't know.
And Mama Tata
filming, yeah,
right? Mama Tata, you should go look next time you're back in town at 712. By the way,
the boys are back in town.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Has wait? 4 says you've seen the video. I don't disagree that it's illegal recording, but it is odd that this person had mentioned, it is the group's right to not disclose why we record. So what were they recording though?
Yeah.
It just all sounds so weird, dude.
Right.
So I don't know.
And it was from 8 o'clock at night until 8 the next morning. But somebody runs by the camera at 2. I'm trying to make did they take the camera down after the woman ran past? That's what it sounded like. But then somebody said it was up until 8 o'clock in the morning.
I've never seen the video. I don't know. But
yeah.
That kind of sound like Dylan running to a truck?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, it's funny. I just heard that story about the tripod and I was like, I don't remember anything about a tripod. And now you bring it up. So crazy.
I mean, who knows? I guess it could not have been somebody involved there, but I think about what are the chances that all that shit goes down, and it's not one of them.
What was with all the rumors about the attack of the killer clowns or whatever that supposedly house members were involved in, and were they filming that kind of thing? There was like all these rumors about this movie being filmed there, and
I've seen a lot of that there was like a movie and it seems to almost depict like there's the underlying story tone of almost depicting exactly what had happened that night. I mean, you've brought up even horror films and how maybe Kopaka and all that stuff. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I don't either. Like, how far do you want to go with that? I don't know.
I mean, that would be nuts if the dude was watching it in Pennsylvania, or like, I don't know if this is obviously speculation. That's what we do here. So, or Force, as it wasn't Dylan, this was Bethany. Was it an astrology club?
Right.
I mean, it is weird that whoever they said ran from the side of the house. So you got to think if their tripod, depending on where it was positioned, that means you'd run out the back sliding door and then you're going to be coming around the side of the house either way, right? Because there would be nowhere to have a camera behind their house unless you were completely just peeping and
right.
peeping
That's
on
what
them,
it sounds
right?
like. Right.
But this sounds like a school project, so I don't know.
Yeah.
Nonetheless, thank you to everybody who did submit a Hive Mind find. I only did a couple of quick ones tonight because this is what I want to get into this evening, Hive. And I'm calling it the marketing of murder. Full transparency. I'm okay with talking about this, not because I'm trying to even make it a big conspiracy. I just think like nobody has the balls to actually say what we're watching happen right in front of our face with the marketing of this and the shaming of everyday people until oh wow, you could sell our DNA like tech, right? It's so weird. And so I'm going to pause there, DA, and I want you to start from when you're at CrimeCon, you're sitting in these meetings. It sounds like they have rooms that have time periods of like, hey, this is when you can go and you can see this person, that person. For those that don't know what CrimeCon is, it's a convention. And why don't we start there?
Yeah. So CrimeCon's got thousands of people that are there. They have sessions going for 3 straight days. Every hour there's a new session. There's usually multiple sessions going on. So you have to pick whether you want to be in the grand ballroom for the feature, whatever the feature is of that particular hour, or whether you're in one of the breakout rooms with something small like, well, Nancy Grace. I don't think Nancy Grace got the ballroom. She got a breakout room, thank goodness. But,
which is surprising.
Yeah, well, maybe I don't know.
If it's pro prosecution, if it's people that are not like.
I mean, to be fair, she was on the main screen in the ballroom. Like every time that we were waiting for another presentation to start, Nancy Grace would come up and give us a little speech about CrimeCon. But I don't think she had the ballroom for her presentations. Anyways, they had a meet and greet with her. Yeah.
Did you have the clown horn to like just quick do it? Like
I don't have the balls for that, but I will tell you. So we all got. If you don't have a lot of money, you get a CrimeCon badge like this. I don't know if you can see it very well. That's my standard issue. They have VIP badges. They have platinum badges. It is expensive to go to CrimeCon, in my opinion, but I did get some swag, right? So I got this cool bag. Got all kinds of cool stuff, including a sheep on this one. So I guess you have to be a sheep to be at CrimeCon. My favorite, though, I think, was this. I'm thinking about putting this on my hat.
Oh, no. No.
You don't. What do you think? I mean, it looks pretty slick, doesn't it? Don't you think?
Yeah, it just seems like maybe somebody got to you, bought and paid for you now.
I hadn't figured out that CrimeCon this year, and I don't, obviously it's not the same every year, but I didn't find out that CrimeCon this year seems to be a promotional vehicle for Othram Labs. It was absolutely disgusting, and I met some fantastic people there. One guy and I were in a meeting, and I'll get more into detail because this is some of those bombshells I told you that I got from that thing. But we were sitting there, and the guy texted me in the middle of the day. He goes, "What the hell? This is like a promotion for Othram Labs." And the entire session was there. I can't tell you how many different sessions name dropped Othram Labs. I can't tell you how many times the crowd cheered whenever Brian Koberger's. They had little sizzle reels between things, and they would flash different criminals on screen. They had Luigi Mangione, and once in a while you'd hear a little gasp from a female in the audience when Mangione was shown on screen. But when Koberger came up, people would cheer for his conviction. Everybody that gave some kind of presentation, it seemed like, slipped in an ode to "Thank God we got Koberger," and they'd give him cheers. It just was a regular thing all the entire time, including the moment when a prosecutor was giving a very good speech. Loved the guy. He was really, really good. And he was talking about a conviction he got on a serial killer, but they didn't get the death penalty. And he said something. He just said, and by the way, he's in the middle of his own case talking about this big, long thing. And he says, and by the way, the one thing I got to say is I'm super disappointed in the prosecution in Idaho because they failed. They should have killed that guy. And I was just like, wow, like, and people cheered and clapped and a round of ovation. It was just, it was a thing. So nobody had any love, for any of that kind of talk about presumption of innocence or anything like that.
God.
It was a little creepy in that regards. I mean, and it is what it is, right? I mean,
this feels less and less like, in general, with Idaho 4, you're saying obviously that got a ton of emotional strings still being pulled clearly at this giant, what seems less and less like a criminal case, and it's just a fucking marketing rollout at this point. That's what it is. Like, that's what this is. It's a marketing rollout for Othram Labs, and I will dive into after what you say. I'm just going to show some things on their site that should make you go and then you're going to listen to what DA says that he watched and witnessed firsthand. You're going to go, hold on, pump the brakes. We are now talking about something that is no longer a misstep. This seems like I said, it's too perfectly coordinated almost. So,
anyways, some stuff here?
No,
I thought you're gonna wait a little bit. All right.
Well, I was just gonna say,
it's up to you. Oh yeah.
I don't know if you guys haven't seen this interview of Stacey Chapin. I say this like lightheartedly, but it's also, this is not necessarily directed at the family. It's directed at everybody that has said, leave the victims' families alone. Let them grieve. Give them their privacy. And it's like, so now what Othram has done is said that questioning us, you're now questioning grief, but also buy and use our DNA tag. And the contracts that were in place from Othram with the ISP prior to any of this happening and just the things that they would lean on. If you haven't seen this South Park episode, it's hilarious. It's pretty much about why am I drawing their names? Merkel and Prince, whatever. You guys know who I'm talking about. They went on a worldwide privacy tour, like, don't look at us, don't talk about us. And now I'm blanking on their names completely.
On a worldwide tour, yeah.
Yeah. So DA, do you think it would be helpful to play this video in full? It's 6 minutes. Just to give people
I don't, as long as you don't get a community guidelines violation. I mean, yeah.
No, I'll be good. I'm not going to play the Prince Harry. Thank you. That's what I was thinking. All right. So here we go. I'm going to just play this, give you guys a little bit of an insight. And then DA, I want you to just go in on everything that you had talked about. All right.
Yeah.
Okay. Here we go. I'm going to put this full screen.
That could help someone heal, that could help someone feel safe or secure, and to not be able to give it to them is difficult. Everyone that worked this case, all the family members that were involved, none of us could speak to the media.
Yeah.
You know that more than anyone.
Right.
And so everyone's speaking, everyone out there giving interviews was speculating with no knowledge, with very little information what was going on. And they painted the wrong picture. And finally, we have our voices back.
Yeah, right.
And we're excited to tell the story.
We met.
Right there, though. What was wrong in the picture that anybody painted on a mainstream media that still is not holding true to the narrative as to what they said happened?
Well, what's funny is I thought for a second, this is the same thing they said there, but this is actually a clip from Crime Bomb, right? Because that's exactly what they said. So
yeah, exactly.
At first I was thinking you're playing a different clip, and I'm like, man, they just repeated the same thing. No, that is what they were saying. Yeah, and I took away from that they were shaming. They were shaming the alt community. We just had to sit back and let all these SOBs run with crazy narratives because they wouldn't let us talk. Like it was somehow our fault for talking during the suppression. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. So there's like 3-4 minutes left here.
By chance, and I had some knowledge throughout our case of what the Middlemans were doing, and I relied on that. Jim and I relied on that in our darkest moments. I didn't know anything, that I wasn't supposed to know, but it was a blessing. And victims' families should have the right to that information if they're going through the same thing we are. I mean, inevitably, there's going to be families that are in the same position we are.
Yeah, I guess there would have been a lot more certainty had it been explained.
It's definitive information. There was so much, so much speculation. There still is. It's shocking to me.
So pause for a moment, because I do want to clarify that you panning out with Brian Enton that was a side interview. So they did repeat the same things from the main stage in front of thousands of people. But this is a side interview because as soon as I saw Enton wasn't up on stage with them. So they must have repeated and it's very scripted because I'm telling you, it's the same shit they said on the main stage. But
yes.
It's scientific,
Yeah,
right?
No,
I mean, if you knew definitively that knife sheath was without a shadow of doubt, which is the case, now that it's all said and done, it would have been different going through. You would have relied on, you kind of went, okay, maybe we don't need to worry as much as we need to worry.
Yeah, and there was one advanced forensic test performed. There was one profile. There was so much speculation out there about multiple profiles, incongruent information. There's only one lab that is doing this type of DNA technology that tested that DNA, and it's ours. Everyone tried to figure out why was this information not out there, what was missing, what was the missing component, and came up with a whole bunch of speculations that led to uncertainty. And that uncertainty continued to grow.
If I have to hear another person say speculation, it's look at how they talk to us. They are talking to us like we are just dumbasses. I can't stand it. I cannot stand it. There are so many people.
I got stuff for you, man. I got stuff. I got stuff.
Yeah, I'm excited.
That was the most difficult on the victim's family.
Yeah, I agree with that. Yeah.
And no one else, right? Like I was certain the entire time because I saw the science. I knew the results, right? I never had one doubt in my mind that we'd be sitting here today, whenever today was, whether it's after the trial, before the trial, at a plea. I knew that this day was going to come, but the victims' families didn't have that certainty. I don't even know if law enforcement involved in the case had that certainty. I don't know how far the results actually propagated as the full result of the investigation.
And by the way, this woman who's talking now she runs Othram Labs, by the way. So
yeah, Kristen Middleman, yeah.
Kristen Middleman.
Yeah.
So under wraps. And I think that needs to change. And I want to make clear, because there are questions in our talk today for David, and I'm sure in our talk tomorrow, that we don't tell them this is your perpetrator. We say this person's profile, or one of these 2 or 3 people in this family left DNA at this crime scene, meaning that they then need to investigate. They need to contextualize that information. They knew in the Kohlberger case that there was a white Elantra that was seen at the crime scene. Now they knew that there was a family in Pennsylvania that was identified. Could they look up a white Elantra that had a Pennsylvania plate or a Pennsylvania driver? Of course they could. And that's part of their investigation. I don't know the order of which the investigators actually investigated that case, but they were able to piece all pieces together because we gave them the information that we gave them. And as they pieced all those puzzle pieces together, it became very clear that there was only one suspect that was possible of committing this crime.
You dumbass.
What is it like for you to meet the person or the people who, I mean, it's so scientific what they did, but to put a face to it.
It's amazing. Jim and I hopped the first plane.
Yeah,
we flew to Houston, and then Maisie and I have been back. I feel forever indebted to them. I have a list of people in my heart that, since November 13th, and
what
I
is
feel
she
that
saying
way about, and they're on the list. I mean, thank God that they developed something that helped our case.
Thank you for watching.
God damn.
I will put context behind this, and it'll make you. You should probably get, like, if you're an adult, you should probably grab a diaper because you might piss yourself a little bit if I lay this out fully, but it's bad. Before I want to get to those 2 individuals, Stacey Chapin and Kristen Middleton, and what happened when they were on stage, because again, I met a great individual, a guy like myself, and we had just met. We would exchange phone numbers, and he was texting me in the middle. He's like, "Oh my God, what the fuck's just happening here?" Like, when I got done, I'm going to tease something we're going to get to in a bit. When I got done, I said, I could not have heard what I just heard. She didn't just say this, this, and this. And he's like, "Yeah, she fucking said that." I'm like, that's not, somebody's lying here. Either the Middlemans are lying, Stacey's lying, the FBI is lying, or Moscow Police lying, because what they just fucking said on stage is not what happened according to the official documents. So somebody's lying. And he's like, 100%. And I was like, well, and then I tried. I was doing mental gymnastics to go, okay, how can what she say actually be true? I'll break it down for us in a little bit here, but let me go on to tell you a little bit about some of the CrimeCon Othram love affair before I get to what happened with Stacey on stage. So again, we had John Benet Ramsey case, right? So we had John Ramsey on there talking about the unsolved, unknown murder of little John Benet Ramsey and how long it's been. And he drops a bombshell on the audience that there was a garrote found with a wooden handle and a rope, and there were splinters that were literally found in John Benet's body from that wooden garrote. And to this day, no one has tested the DNA on the garrote.
How?
And there was a gasp in the audience, like, how can you not have tested the DNA? Guess what? Othram Labs is going to test the DNA, and we're going to get the killer. And they hinted several times, hold your hats, folks. Othram Labs is going to finally solve the John Benet Ramsey case of 30 years or whatever. And it was just, I was like, what the fuck's going on here? And when Othram Labs got on, a ringer from the audience said, hey, are you guys going to work with John Ramsey and get an answer to John Benet Ramsey? And they're like, well, we can't say much, but yes. And everyone's like, yeah. It was like, I was like, wow. Like, that was one example. The vendor floor at the CrimeCon where all these vendors have, the center of the vendor floor was all Othram Labs, humongous centerpiece in the entire place. There was inappropriate times, like at the close of CrimeCon, I was there for a session called How to Sell True Crime to TV stations like Netflix and whatever, and the producer of CSI is on. Are you laughing about a comment in the chat?
No, I coughed. Sorry.
Oh, okay. So so the producer, is coming on, and he basically says, "Hey, how you guys enjoying CrimeCon? Did you have a good time this weekend? Yeah. How great is it that you get to bump elbows with Othram Labs?" And I'm like, what the fuck does that have to do with anything right now? How is this entire CrimeCon about selling Othram Labs? It was the craziest thing. And again, that's what the guy was sitting with. He said, this is just this whole thing is a promotional vehicle for Othram Labs. Now, let me do caveat. I really, really think there's things you can get out of CrimeCon. There were some fascinating stories. So I know some people are going to hear this and I'll never attend a CrimeCon in my life if that's what they're going to do. I don't think they sell Othram every year, but there clearly was some deals in place, and that was about that. And so, you had to kind of look the other way because there was some really good sessions, and I learned some crazy stuff at CrimeCon, but not something we can get into now. But
well, it's something that we've talked about at length is what Donna just said, which is that, okay, well, the precedent has now officially been set because you're going to allow a private company that's just going to do these investigations via contracts with the police. And if you look at this feedback loop that I've typed out at the top of the screen, okay, now you have the victim's family member who is the face of the company. That means that the company's credibility is reinforced by the conviction, and the company is profiting off of conviction. So now, you had made a really good point backstage about tying this to plea deals. And why do you think that this is what they're pushing for? Because rather than go to trial and have any of this ever be exposed, the amount of plea deals that we are about to see with this type of DNA, because people don't know how to defend against it, we just watched this get put out into the entire world news in everybody's face that they know about it. Othram is sponsoring CrimeCon. They are the hottest DNA tech in the world right now, booming. What do we do when you go to a trial now and your case gets railroaded like this?
Yeah, and I got to say, along that lines, one of the things that Kristen Middleman said when she did her Othram thing that I'm going to talk about that really kind of freaked me out was, because if you're a conspiracy theorist, you can't freak out with the wording she used. Othram Labs was basically created to solve cold cases. However, they wanted to have a real-time scenario in which they solved a crime that was happening now. And this was a great test for them, to test catching somebody in real time instead of just going back and catching something on cold case. And I was like, motherfucker, like you're literally setting the precedent that we are now going to catch people in the act. Like, we're going to catch them like moments after they committed it with this great new technology. If you just fund us big enough, we'll catch criminals within hours of them committing the crimes because we have this great technology. And I was like, we are on a bad slippery slope at the moment.
We are on a terrible slippery slope. And look at their recent article. This screen grab came from just a few hours ago before the stream. Oh, the algorithmic era of policing will scale. Justice for everyone, everywhere. Oh, and they use an AI to every part of the investigation, helping agencies organize all the evidence, connect critical details, and you're going to use our DNA for it. Almost like it's an extension of Palantir, but they're doing it with DNA as the face of this company rather than just predictive policing doing it. They're going to do it with cold cases. See, we're taking down murders, but it's the same overstep and overreach on the rights at the basis of it. It's the same common denominator, guys.
Right. And to go to your, the comment that we said, I've been saying recently, 93 to 95% of all cases plea and don't go to trial. 95% of cases go to a plea and don't go to trial, because I feel we are getting to the point where law enforcement is increasingly violating our civil liberties, but then stacking the deck saying there's no way you can get away with this. We know you did it. We have overwhelming evidence. If you almost like, we'll baffle the jury with bullshit. You can't win this case, but if you take a plea, it'll go easier on you. And they don't want to have to show their work. I think that happened in Idaho 4. They violated constitutional rights. They violated citizens' rights. They spied on Americans illegally, and they didn't want to have to admit that in a court of law. So what they do, they put enormous pressure on to get a plea deal, and then they never have to show their work, and they can do this over and over again. They can do it over and over again.
Exactly. And so look at what's on screen here. Like, this is the weirder part. This has come together so perfectly, DA. So perfectly. The timing of all of this. And now you have a victim's family tied to that brand. So they are essentially immune against any critique. The emotional weight of Stacey Chapin as their spokesperson shields the company from any technical skepticism. I think that it is a marketing rollout off of murder. Everything that they were just saying in that interview of people just speculated. Like, you just ended all of that for anything against what convicted Brian Kohberger, because now you have the mother, Stacey, giving talks for you and probably will end up being a paid spokesperson. I don't know, obviously, but I would guess, just from being around other industries where when you go to conventions and you see people speaking on behalf of a company, 9 times out of 10, they're paid spokespersons for that event.
I would bet enormous money. It's without doubt the Chapins are the paid spokesman and face of Othram Labs now. They have been paid for what they're doing. I need to get to it. When they got up on stage together for the session titled "How Idaho 4 Case Was Solved," featuring Othram Labs, which I immediately said, how the fuck did Othram Labs solve this case? Because I want to break down for you what I believe the narrative was. Idaho State Forensic Lab got the DNA sample. They developed an STR profile off of it and put it into CODIS and couldn't get a hit. Then they delivered it over to Othram Labs, and Othram Labs developed it to 4 brothers, not Brian Kohberger, not related to Brian Kohberger, really. No direct connection, no family tie. The names weren't Kohberger. Those brothers weren't Kohberger. I think I have a new theory about who those 4 brothers are, which we'll get to in a little bit. That's part of the bombshell. But they didn't develop to Brian Kohberger. And then, after some time, the feds told Othram Labs, weeks went by, they told Othram Labs to halt their testing, and they took over the profile. And then they developed the profile further, according to Ann Taylor, doubled the SNP, the SNP. They doubled the SNP in size. Ann Taylor says, we don't know how it doubled in size. You won't show us the work. They protected it under law enforcement secrets and wouldn't show Ann Taylor how they doubled it, even though when you were, as a person on trial, you have a right to know the evidence against you. You have a right to see how they got the evidence against you. You have the right to see how they developed that profile. They said, nope, law enforcement secrets. We don't have to tell you how we developed the profile. Just trust us. It was good, solid police work. Then they backed off that and said, hey, we don't intend to use the DNA anyways. We've got enough circumstantial evidence. We don't have to show your work, because they violated the law. They know they violated the law, and they never intended to show it at court because they would be in deep shit. I think that's why we got a plea deal, because they didn't want to have to show their receipts. I know I'm getting kind of ahead of myself. So the point being is that keep that in mind when you hear what I'm going to tell you. So Stacy Chapin gets up on stage with Kristen Middleman, huge round of applause, and she says something to the effect of, I think there's going to be big things in the future for us. We're going to have a partnership. We're going to have big things in the future. And I immediately went, here we fucking go. The Chapins are the face of Othram Labs. And sure enough, they start to tell a story. Kristen Middleman says this. Now, everything I just told you, hopefully is a primer. Kristen Middleman said this. By the way, we had to shut our mouth. They wouldn't let us talk because of the gag order, but we had Brian Koberger 5 days after getting the DNA. And I looked at the guy next to me and I go, did they just fucking say that? And there was a round of applause. Oh, yeah. You had Brian Koberger 5 fucking days after you had the profile? Bullshit. Unless somebody's fucking lying to us. Because again, the state had it for over 5 days. When Othram Labs got to it, they worked over the weekend, and in 48 hours, they developed an SNP, which was 4 brothers and not Brian Koberger. The FBI took over after that for weeks before they got Brian Koberger. And she just told the audience, when we got the DNA sample, we had Brian Koberger in 5 days.
How?
Okay. What? Well, I'm like, okay, what did I fucking hear wrong? So then there's another story they got told. Get this. So they're telling a story about the first time that Kristen Middleman met Stacy, and they didn't know that they were going to be in the same place at the same time. Stacy, this was sometime, I believe, around Thanksgiving. Brian Koberger had not been arrested yet, had not been identified. So Stacy's at some kind of meeting for parents of murdered children. And people are going around, and I think she said that John Bonet family might have been there, and she was thinking, she was just like, what am I doing in this place? And then it got to her, and she had to tell her story about Ethan. And she says, to my surprise, and Kristen cuts away for a second and says, yeah, and by the way, when I heard this woman telling her story, I was like, oh, we're working on that case. So Stacy's telling the story about Ethan, and she says, all of a sudden this woman comes up, and I'm in tears, I'm bawling, I can barely hold it together. And I get this big hug from this stranger, and she leans in close and she says, don't worry, we already got him. And that was before he had been identified. So afterwards I said to the guy next to me, did she just fucking say she told Stacy Chapin that they knew who BK was before they had identified him? Oh yeah, that's what she hinted. We already have him. She's hinted all in several words. We already had him, just like she said at the very beginning. We had Brian Koberger in 5 days. So somebody's lying. Now there's a scenario you could say, maybe Othram Labs made a mistake and they went to that database that we all know is a problem, going to a public database that they shouldn't have gone to if it's a law enforcement thing. Othram Labs probably has a habit of using Ancestry.com and the databases that law enforcement's not supposed to use. So law enforcement had turned over, by the way, there's a really interesting story about how they got that DNA. I maybe want to tell you, but the point being is that, maybe they made a mistake and they were under a law enforcement contract and they fucked up and they're like, shit, you can't do that. That's against the law. We have to cover it. So then the feds took over the case so they could hide the fact that Othram had already violated the law. So there's a part of me that thinks that maybe it is true. Maybe Othram did get Brian Koberger in 5 days, and then they were an oh shit because they broke the law and the feds took over to hide it. Right?
I mean, because if it was, that is what I'm trying to also figure out, DA. There was moments in the sentencing, Steve G made comments on having that DNA immediately as well, if you remember. Yeah. Do you remember that? He also had said this. So now it's like, hold on. In what world would that ever be allowed to be communicated from the lady that runs the company directly to a victim's parent when the law enforcement has not arrested this man yet? And if that is the truth and the FBI does take over, does that not at least justify, hey, like, we're going to get some sort of warrant on some other thing, whatever it is, and whether they couldn't get the warrant because they didn't have probable cause, because the probable cause was eroded because of the way that they got the DNA, wow, they would probably seal that and say, we can't tell you how we got it, wouldn't they? Wouldn't that be a very logical bridge building exercise for everybody right there to wrap your heads around the fact, like, oh, the lady that runs the company told the victim's mother that they already got him.
Yeah, and I want to address Annie Ruler, by the way, up here. You've got a comment on my feed, but I think you see it. Annie Ruler says the DNA sample was huge, according to Othram. I got a theory about what happened in this case, and I'm going to get to it in the kind of conspiracy side of this. We now know, and I heard Pavarotti do a big talk on this recently, right? That in some of the newer documents that came out from Idaho, we know that there was more DNA on the knife sheath than the single source speck of DNA on the snap. We now also know for sure that there was a mixed DNA sample of blood on the strap of that knife sheath as well. I believe there's a strong possibility they got to the four brothers through the mixed DNA on the back of the strap, not the single source DNA on the button snap. And I'll explain to you in a little bit how I think they got there. So I think they're hiding. They're playing shell games with what they tested and what they got. I think they're lying to everybody in America, and the sheeple are just going to fucking cheer and applaud them for great goddamn detective work. And we're all being lied to about how it really happened. And they don't give a shit about our constitutional rights. Some of you, I know you're thinking, well, if he's a killer, fuck his constitutional rights. Well, you should care about constitutional rights because they're going to do this to people who are innocent. And in this case, it may be that case as well. Like, don't get me wrong. There's still a very possible scenario in which Brian Koberger didn't have anything to do with this. And I'll get to that in a little bit.
Well,
but go ahead.
I just wanted to ask you a question. What would you do as a parent? This is speculation, everybody, right here, what I'm about to say. God forbid anybody's ever in that position. But I think to myself that if I'm at one of these things for parents who had just lost their children, and my wife gets done talking, and she's all emotional and she's worked up, and then she comes and finds me, at the back of the conference room, she goes, "Hey, babe, this lady who owns Othram Labs says they already got the guy." Is there not a moment of what? Like, how isn't it not a big commotion? Isn't it not something immediately like, do you know what I mean? DA, where's the naturalness of that? Like, how do you not react like
you can kind of hear it. You can kind of hear it in Stacy's, backpedaling when she says, "Well, we didn't know anything we weren't supposed to know, of course."
Oh,
which was her immediate backpedal of, you were told. You and the Gonzalez family and several families were told things by law enforcement. Hey, chill. We got this guy already. We're not doing it legally, but we got him already. So just don't talk. You're under gag order. Keep your mouth shut. But I want to give you some peace and assurance of mind that we've got him. So just let us play this out. And I feel that that's what was told. That was told to Stacy. That was told to Steve Gonzalez. They were told, we've got this guy. Relax. But then they had some problems with the legalities of the issue. So
and now why don't you go back to the Four Brothers hit, because I think it's a little bit too convenient. Like, if you think about it, Othram comes in with their tech. They're sitting on a contract that is current with the ISP. They take the DNA sheet, they build a profile, and boom, you got Brian Koberger at the center of this with no jury, no trial. Just trust us. Trust our company. We're Othram Labs. I told the mom after she got done off the stage that we got the guy.
Yeah.
Are we?
Yeah, and they didn't. Again, we will get to it, and I'll try to be fast. I realize we're going long tonight, but we will get to the Four Brothers because I think it's important. I did want to tell a quick story that I thought was kind of interesting, just from a how things work perspective. Othram Labs was contacted by law enforcement. It wasn't clear whether it was Moscow or it was the feds, but they were contacted early on after Idaho couldn't develop the hit in CODIS. And they went to Othram Labs and they said, "We got a phone call. We're this lab that's trying to get on the cutting edge of technology. We got a phone call from law enforcement." And they said, "How quickly can you get us a full profile?" And they talked it over real quick. And the owner, David Middleman, said, "We can get him a profile in 48 hours. And they said, "Thanks. You may or may not hear from us." Then the feds or law enforcement and I think the feds walked into their building a couple days later without letting them know they're on their way with the sample and said, "Show us your place right now and prove that you can do this. And after we feel good about it, if we feel good about it, we'll leave the sample with you and you got 48 hours to develop it." Now, here's the thing that was funny about that story. This happened on November 22nd, which is important for the timeline that I want to lay out for you. This happened on November 22nd. She bragged about how dedicated the employees are of Othram Labs because they all just volunteered to stay working through Thanksgiving to make sure that profile was done. And I'm like, well, of course you fucking did. Your entire company is going to be enormous because of this one case itself. Oh, they were so self-sacrificing. They decided this is what kind of great people we've got working at Othram. They took one for the team. And I'm like, anyone in their right mind would be, you're not fucking going to Thanksgiving this year. You're fucking developing that profile because this is going to be the make or break moment of our company.
That is textbook PR strategy. Textbook.
Right.
And then you look at what they just put the bow on it with being Ethan's mom. That is a textbook PR strategy that you just used this situation in it. Right now we're talking about murder, but you can apply it to any company. They are going to have a launch pad moment. They knew that this was it. So yes, it's over Thanksgiving break. All the employees, now they're out there touting 500 plus convictions, all with never showing proof. Like, what are we allowing to happen?
Right. And you have to, like, I know good writing when I see it. There was a up right before the Thanksgiving story. Stacy's telling us about how, and it dawned on me, this is true. This murder happened November 12th. It's before Thanksgiving. It's right before Thanksgiving. And Stacy told a very emotional story about how can there be anything to be thankful for? And I'm like, wow, that's true. You're going into Thanksgiving. Families get together for Thanksgiving. What can there possibly be to be thankful for? You just lost a family member. So he tells this very touching story. She's got eyes weeping in the thing. And then we did it. We were going to solve this case for her. We stayed there. We got that case done. We worked through Thanksgiving to help this family. And I told her, we've got them already. Relax. We had them in 5 days. And I'm like, okay, that's great storytelling. But is that how it fucking happened? So
what would be the legal implications if that happened? What would that mean? Because at the end of the day, it's not like the private company wasn't contracted with the ISP. They were. But my question is, why are contracts like this existing? If it is an overreach, meaning you're very obvious, being Othram, that you use IgG. You're very obvious. Like, it's very clearly stated this is against the FBI's guidelines. So why is any state police, any law enforcement agency allowed to contract with them?
Well, I mean, and all I can think of, when you go down the conspiracy road, is they know that 95% of the time they're going to get a plea deal. So you can break the law here and there and just get them to plea out if you got overwhelming evidence on them, and you can strong arm them.
So then let's talk through this conspiracy angle, DA.
Yeah.
Everything that you just said, right? We're speculating on, but let's say that happens. Then, in addition, they make Stacey Chapin their spokesperson of their company at this event. People are losing their mind. Their contracts that they're getting with other state and local police are going through the roof. Now, what are the chances, in addition to all of that, Brian Kohberger's papers are writing against what is happening to him? So we have everything that you just said with a textbook PR. Then you have nothing in Brian Kohberger's apartment that makes it look like anybody really lives there. It's the weirdest setup ever. He buys food.
Yeah. Did you just freeze? Oh shit, Birdie froze. We'll wait for Birdie to get his shit
I'm
back
back.
together.
There we
All
go.
right.
Am I good now? Where did I cut out? That pisses me off. Right in the middle.
He bought food and then you cut out.
Yeah, he got food just to leave town. So he's gonna go buy food from Walmart, and then he's like, I'm just gonna let this all sit and it probably go bad. I know it's like in the freezer, whatever. I'm not trying to get technical. You guys get my point of like, why and how do all of these things line up? In addition to the secrecy, the redactions, it just so happens that Brian's writing about what is happening to him, or what he's against is now happening to him, and the overreach. And you put in this predictive policing and predictive criminal behavior study that Washington State was getting. And now you really start to scratch your head on what the hell are we watching play out? Because there is no effing way this is a natural occurrence of events. It's too clean. It's literally textbook PR strategy, guys.
So I want to caveat. I want to go off the rails, and I want to tell you the timeline that I believe is what they told us happened, and it's officially in documents. I looked it up before going on this show, so I can give you the dates. And so I want to tell you that the official timeline that's been out there in all kinds of sources. I want you to keep in mind in your head. We had them in 5 days. Relax. We've got it. We have them. We've got them in 5 days after getting the profile. So I'm going to tell you when they had the profile 5 days later. And I'm going to lay this out for you. And I'm going to go off the rails because we're going to mention a name that everybody fucking loses their mind. But I'm going to tell you a theory that I'm starting to think is plausible. And you tell me whether this isn't plausible. I know some of you are going to fucking hate this. Like, I'm so fucking tired of hearing this guy's name. Bear with me on what I think happened. Keep in mind, again, there was more DNA on the back of that knife sheath. It wasn't just the single source DNA on the button snap. There was also mixed DNA on the back of the sheath. I think to somebody's question, that was probably used to develop the Four Brothers lead. And here's the kind of the logic of how this works. So first of all, remember the murders happened November 12th/13th, the morning of 13th. And they took that profile, they took that sheath right away down to Idaho. So I think it was driven right away. It probably got there on the 13th, if not the 14th of November. They developed an STR, I think is what it's called, profile, which is basically just enough to get it into CODIS, and CODIS came up with no hit. They had it for a while, and then it got turned over to Othram Labs because they couldn't do anything more with it at the Idaho State Forensics Lab. Othram Labs, who had already been under contract by Idaho to do things like cold cases and whatever, and had been waiting for this great moment to prove they can solve crimes in real time, gets it on November 22nd, I believe. So just making double check with my thing. So the 22nd of November is when Othram Labs got the STR and the profile. And that's when they were told, how quickly can you develop an SNP, which has hundreds of markers, right? Hundreds of markers. So how quickly can you do it? Well, we can do it in 48 hours. They delivered that. They worked through Thanksgiving and they delivered it. Even so, it puts us around the 24th, right? 25th of November, long before Brian Koberger is identified. She tells Stacy, we had Brian Koberger within 5 days of getting the DNA. Cannot be true. So let's follow what happened. After they got it on the 22nd, they came up with a lead to four brothers. And this is what they knew about the four brothers. All they knew, they said, and this was said on the stage in front of CrimeCon and thousands of people, all we knew is that genetically, it seemed to trace back to some area in Pennsylvania where families were of this heritage, and it was going to be a family in Pennsylvania that had some kind of Italian descent. And there was only two families it could have possibly been. Huge rounding applause. Yeah, fuck yeah, you got him. Okay, problem is, still not fucking Brian Koberger. None of those four brothers were Brian Koberger. Guess what? Brian Koberger has no brothers. No brothers. Now, I can tell you the long answer about how they're going to answer the brother thing, but let's just take them on face value. We traced it to four brothers. I can tell you somebody who is from Pennsylvania there's four brothers, Brent Kopacka and his three brothers. So this is what I think happened, because if you listen to what they talk about, here's what happened. They developed four brothers that came from Pennsylvania. When they couldn't come up with a definitive lead on the thing, they started to look into what of these four brothers have anything weird going on. Guess what would be weird? One guy from those four brothers who moved to Pullman, Washington, and is living at Pullman, Washington campus at the time of the murders. That, I think, triggered them that Brent Kopacka is probably our guy. Othram Labs gave them, it's somebody from Pennsylvania, and here's the thing, by the way, they leaned on Othram Labs. Well, I shouldn't say leaned. Othram Labs asked one of the brothers to submit their DNA profile to like Ancestry.com so they can continue to try to develop the profile. That brother told him to pack sand. Okay, so they didn't get their wish. They didn't get to develop that further because one of those four brothers said, "Fuck yourself. I'm not gonna go give you guys DNA so you can try to implicate our family." So I'm starting to speculate that what happened around that time was that they started to look into the two families that were from Pennsylvania who had four brothers. And is there anything weird about that family? One of those family members was in Pullman, Washington, Brent Kopacka, not Koberger. Now, the weird thing about this whole fucking thing, if you really follow the logic, and it gets kind of crazy conspiracy theory, is that I know for 100% fact that the Kopacka family comes from Pennsylvania and lives in Pennsylvania and has houses in Pennsylvania at the same time that the Kobergers are living in Pennsylvania. Those two families come from Pennsylvania, including Kopacka and Koberger. Now, there are people out there like Drip Drop from Crime Circus who have said, by the way, Brent Kopacka lived 7 miles away from where Brian Koberger was going to school. In fact, Brian Koberger may have been living in the same house with Brent Kopacka. I've never been able to prove that. I can't get Drip Drop to respond to me on how he got that information. So it may be 100% hearsay. But I'm telling you, if these two guys were in Pennsylvania at the same time and knew each other and then came out to Pullman, Washington and lived within 2 miles of each other in Pullman, Washington, which is the fucking butt crack of Washington, then there's no fucking coincidence with that. Are you following me so far?
I am following you, and trust me, my tinfoil hat is ready to just explode right now.
So I think Brent Kopacka was on the Fed's radar at this point. Not necessarily Moscow PD. I think the Feds were watching Brent Kopacka. So 1 month and 1 day after the murders, after they've already got a profile that leads to 4 brothers, one of which may have been Kopaka, they're watching Kopaka, and a disturbance happens in Pullman, Washington, where a guy's losing his lid. He's threatening to kill his roommates. Those of you who've been following the story for a long time have heard the rumors that Brent Kopaka was yelling, and people heard him say, "I killed those kids." Some people say, "I didn't kill those kids," is what he said. Some people say they heard him say, "I didn't kill those roommates." Another person said they heard him say, "I killed those roommates." Whatever the case may be, there's been rumors all over the place that Kopaka himself was maybe in a distraught state, was agitated, that he was confessing to, "I killed those kids," whatever. The feds have been watching Kopaka in this theory. So the feds go in and, you know the story, they shoot and kill Kopaka. Brian Koberger leaves that same day that Kopaka is shot and killed in Pullman, Washington. Him and his father leave town and get out of town. They get pulled over.
Another coincidence, by the way. Another coincidence. Right? It's like, wow, that's odd.
Right. So, and let me say this too. Let me go back just to hair. So, on the Koberger Kopaka connection. So, the best friend, and a lot of you have heard this before, but some of you haven't. So let me take a moment to lay it out. The best friend of Brent Kopaka, Darren Duncan, said on, I can't remember who the guy's show he was on, Rab's channel on YouTube. There was, and I've got the clip on my website. Said, "Hey, look, I wish I could have, been there that night that they shot and killed my friend Brent Kopaka." He made several comments. One, just because we're into horror films, and he's referring to himself and his group of friends, including Brent Kopaka, doesn't mean that we're bad people, that we're going to kill somebody. He had emotional problems. He had PTSD. I could have talked him off the ledge. He said a strange thing happened that night after they shot his friend. I think, Darren Duncan said, they thought that Brent Kopaka was involved in the murders of Idaho 4. Well, fuck yeah, I think that. I'm starting to think that more and more. The feds had gotten the profile from Othram Labs, looking at 4 brothers. One of them was in Pullman, Washington. They started watching him, and they thought that maybe he might have been involved in the Idaho 4 murder, because that's the lead Othram has led them down.
Do you know when Kopaka moved out there? Do you know the date off the top of your head?
He had been out there for a couple years, I think, before that. And he had, in fact, not to get super off the rails, but the kids mostly come from Coeur d'Alene. Kopaka was in Coeur d'Alene. Kopaka had a phone that he bought in Coeur d'Alene. So he may have known the kids from Coeur d'Alene. And in fact, there's also, we've talked about this a little bit just recently, about whether or not Kopaka is seen on camera at the Corner Club that night. Kopaka might have been at the bar that night.
That's what people have said. And DA Sherlock just pointed out, he says, "I'm sorry, but it's in the Pullman police reports that Brent was yelling that he wanted to see his brother and to, quote, give him back." That's confirmed by police reports. It's not a theory. But you're saying in general, he's agitated, he's yelling. People are witnessing this. People are talking about this.
Right. Right.
I go back to, I know there's a lot of people that when you bring up 4chan or Reddit threads, I'm not saying that it's going to have the exact laid out who did it, what did it, or how did it happen, what happened. There was one that I showed on stream, though, about a guy who said Brent Kopaka was in my unit. Him and I both wanted to get into either private security or FBI after we got done serving. He was getting out before me. This is now the first time that I'm seeing him. I've never heard anything about him. I can't wrap my head around this. So I'm like, okay, that's crazy. Yeah.
It's gonna get weirder. It's gonna get weirder because I don't even know where to start. But let me continue with the night of the shooting. So Darren Duncan talked about when they went in, and some of you have seen the videos, right? There's some video footage of the standoff. We don't see the shooting of Brent Kopaka, but some of us have seen the footage where they open up the apartment that Kopaka is in, and there's no fucking furniture there.
None.
It's like an empty place, and several people have speculated: was anybody really living there, or is this just some fucking like stage area or something like that? One of the things that was weird is Darren Duncan said, and he only said it about the bedroom, not the entire apartment, but he said, "Hey, look. When we went over to the apartment after they let us in like the next day, I think is what he's saying. They went over there the next day after Brent Kopaka had been shot and killed, and they went to get his stuff. And there was no furniture in Brent Kopaka's bedroom. There was no bed. There was no dresser. All that was in Kopaka's bedroom was a broken safe, a few electronics, and his military discharge papers." And I said, how fucking convenient if you're trying to sell a story that some PTSD guy might have killed all those kids or whatever. Like here, everybody, he had PTSD. Maybe you understand. So I started like, what the hell's going on here? Then he says, the other weird thing that kind of happened is Brent Kopaka's phone was in the kitchen on the island, and it had been factory wiped. And the guy that he's interviewing said, that's fucking weird. And Darren says, that's super fucking weird. And I'm like, what the hell is going on here? Who's trying to hide traces of who Kopacka knew? Because again, I have long said I have a theory. I've been bouncing around that I can't prove, so I tend not to talk about it until I'm on, your show. I tend to try to keep it.
I'm happy. Shit, I'd rather have you come out here and talk about this because this is interesting as hell, dude.
So I've always been trying to make that connection between the Kohbergers. Now again, Drip Drop says they were in the same town together within 7 miles. That would be almost good enough for me. You can't convince me it's a coincidence that these two guys were in the same place in the same time in Pennsylvania and then end up at the same place in the same time in fucking Pullman, Washington. I will not believe that's a coincidence, even though I've got a friend who's like, yeah, that's totally a coincidence. Like, that's fucking no coincidence. But it doesn't stop there. So then you ask, well, how would they know each other? There's some circumstantial connections between Kohberger and Kopacka. Allegedly, and maybe I've got the exact branch wrong, but I don't think so. There was articles that came out about Brian Kohberger when he was in high school and how he wanted to be an Army Ranger. Kopacka is an Army Ranger. So there's that weird connection. Also, they're into horror movies. Brent Kopacka's sister, Amanda Kohberger, starred in a horror movie, a slasher film, where they all got slaughtered because the college kids stumbled upon something they shouldn't and all got murdered. And somebody, the director of that movie, when he found out that Amanda Kohberger was the sister of Brian Kohberger, the guy that was accused of the homicides in Pullman, was like, no fucking way. How's that even happen? He was unbelievable. What are the odds of that shit? So then you have to ask yourself, did these guys all know each other? Did they come from Pennsylvania? Were they horror film fans? And again, did Othram Labs develop the four brothers that could have been, and again, they've got an argument for why it's not those four brothers, but it could have been Brent Kopacka, Ethan Kopacka, Aaron Kopacka, and I got the four names. They're four brothers. They have very similar names except for Brent and I was trying to, but it doesn't matter. That was the four brothers. And I'm like, what if that was the four brothers? And again, there's a document that says when they couldn't get to Kohberger from that family, they sidestepped. Well, who's near them? So again, if they got to Kopacka, then they look for friends of Kopacka. And now you've got another guy who's friends of Kopacka who comes from Pennsylvania and comes out to Pullman. Why wouldn't they zero in on Kohberger next?
Yes. And right? and then you also go into, there is plenty of reasonable doubt that what they deemed suspect vehicle 1 that night was the off-duty undercover Ford Fusion police car, right? There's so much more than enough for when you learn about the Delta and the body cam being off. I just would ask you this, DA. Is anybody else seeing a fucking pattern here? Is anybody seeing a pattern? You know what I mean? It's always moving the goalposts. Like, don't look here. Don't even forget to, I will, this is a hill that I would die. I swear to God, the judge was, if not said it very like half-assed, but I swear the judge had said Brent Kopacka, and then stopped.
Everybody's lots of people say that he slipped up. The first judge, right? The first judge in the case said Brent Kopacka instead of Brian Kohberger.
Wild. Yeah. Same initials, all these things. And my question, I tend to go back to, well, and I don't want to end what you were saying, so I'll let you finish because now I'm gonna try to piece together this. Yeah, and
I'll try to. I'm kind of getting at the end of my logic trail is, but I've got some grander conspiracy theories if that's true. So that my theory is it possible that Othram Labs, that the four brothers they developed it to wasn't some 4 different family trees that they eventually went up, and then over, and then came back down and got to Kohberger, because that's what they're basically trying to say. We got these 4 people and we followed their family trees up and then went sideways to who they were married, then came back down and got to Kohberger that way. What they literally said is we took a sidestep using whatever we could from that to how can we get to somebody else. So is it possible that the 4 brothers were simply Kopacka and his 3 brothers, and that one of Kopacka's brothers told him to eat shit. I'm not going to help you get my brother on shit. And then they sidestepped and found another guy from Pennsylvania who came out, and that became their focus once Kopacka was killed. So go ahead.
I'm just going to say, dude, like now you have to start to wonder, you just have to start to wonder, why would you go through all of this trouble to cover it up that a vet with PTSD snapped and killed these college girls? What would be the X factor that would make somebody partake in this massive cover up? That has been the reason that I've always wondered why that. Why
So,
cover all that up for that reason? You have a guy who just snapped, he lost his mind. Boom, it's cleaner than this narrative.
There's several hypotheses, and I'm not saying they're great, but let me give you several hypotheses. Brett Payne, the lead detective, who a lot of people questioned, why did Brett Payne, after 2 years on the force there, get promoted to being the head of this investigation, the biggest investigation they probably ever are going to see? How did that happen? Well, is it a coincidence again that Brett Payne served in the 82nd Airborne like Brent Kopacka? Not only that, but let me tell you, you have to understand, Devil's Advocates, the 82nd Airborne is an enormous division. Yes, 100%. But you know what isn't? That they served in the same paratrooper combat team. They were in the same team 4 of the same paratrooper group. They were both paratroopers in the 82nd Airborne. So now it gets a little bit more, are you sure you're going to go with that's in a giant division? And then, of course, it's just a coincidence. Like, how far can we drill into that? So what does that mean? What does that even mean? So yes, I understand. I can't place Brett Payne in service at the same time as Kopacka. But let's talk about VFW. Do you not hang out with other soldiers? Do you not have an instant camaraderie with somebody who served in the same division as you, who served in the same exact combat team as you? Do these people possibly know each other? And then the question becomes, why was Brett Payne put in charge of this investigation? And here's a couple of different hypotheses. Was it to save the embarrassment? I don't need another fucking story besmirching the Rangers that some guy with PTSD just wiped out a bunch of college students. So we're just going to fucking make sure this doesn't come back to that same narrative, that it's a guy with PTSD that did another huge, horrible murder. That could be one scenario of covering up for the thing. The other scenario could, go ahead.
A brotherhood mentality is
Right. And protecting this, the honor of your unit and trying to just like not have that, drag your unit into the mud. Those could be something like that. You'll go darker. You go much darker. What if, and it's super dark. What if Kopacka was, what if the police in Moscow, here you go, heaven forbid. What if the police in Moscow, Idaho, like many people say happen in America, when you're small time city, the cops get corrupt and drug dealers buy off cops to allow drugs to run them through their town. So were there cops on the take from running drugs through the campuses? How would that not be a possible scenario? And if you've got that kind of situation, if you've got cops involved with something and somebody's going to rat out the cops to let people know that the cops are in on some drug thing, maybe somebody decides to get somebody to do some wet work, somebody who's trained in the military to go in there and take everybody fucking out. And then a big cover up, blame it on something else, an incel who can't get laid. And Bob's your uncle, you have a cover up for the cops aren't involved in the drug trade. So, and then there's all these stories about there's a cop that's involved with Kaylee and was Rosie having an affair with Kaylee? Was he there that night? This is some of the new stuff that people are talking about.
The football coach. Like
the football coach, they were looking at Kaylee and the football coach. Right. Kaylee had a lot of male friends, only some of which are cops or professors or, athletic directors, whatever the case may be. So there's a lot of scenarios that you could let your mind run with. But, at the end of the day, you're right. Like, people don't believe in enormous cover-ups and conspiracies. So they look for the Occam's razor solution. And I think it isn't all that terrible to say an Occam's razor solution is Othram Labs developed a profile to Brent Kopacka and his brothers and found out that one of the brothers had moved to Pullman, and that's who was on their radar. And what happened at that point, then who knows?
As you're saying all this, I tend to always think to myself, this is not random. It's not just sloppy luck. You know what I mean? This feels designed, DA. This feels too convenient, too marketable, almost in a weird way. It's too messy, yet too perfect to be anything that would be naturally occurring. Down to the fact of, okay, we don't see the victims. We don't see any blood. You don't see Kopacka get shot. You don't see blood splatter. I just saw a video of some chick on a bus or subway get her throat slashed about. Like, they'll show anything. You know what I mean? Like, you could go see any of it. How does this not?
Right. And right. And to go again, I reserve this shit for you. Again, to go down that thing, right? You've talked about the money. You've talked about the grant from the NIJ for
Let's
Pullman,
go down
Washington.
this rabbit hole. Let's go down this.
So I have to ask myself, because again, what was Othram trying to do? Othram wants to get on the lab as being the premier lab to catch things in real time. So if you have $1 million funding grant that comes to the campus Pullman and says, we want you to study crimes that happen off campus in real world situations. Here's a bunch of money. And then you've got Othram saying, we want to be the premier thing that catches crimes in real time. One could start to make the logic that they've already raised $48 million, and that's the tip of the iceberg. Right now, because they're featured in CrimeCon and they're telling everybody in America, we need more Othram labs out there, they are going to fucking be enormous. This just launched their business into the stratosphere. They're going to be the household name. So is it a stretch for people who do the follow the money thing that you could want to have that kind of thing happen, pay for that kind of thing to happen so that you could launch your company and prove that I'm going to catch the bad guy right after it happened kind of thing? I don't know. Maybe,
well, let me ask you this, and Dia, let me try to piece this together, because as you were talking, this is exactly the rabbit hole that I wanted to go down. Meaning, we just heard middlemen say what you said. We wanted to see if we could do this in real time. We've typically been solving cold cases that are, from 20 years ago, 30 years ago, all that, right? In addition to what you were just saying with Washington State getting that funding, Koberger shows up in the middle of that funding. You have somebody who was allegedly in Kopaka's unit saying he wanted to work private security or work with the FBI. Okay, you have the FBI as a very, very close common denominator to almost every reason why somebody would be at Washington State University, involved with their criminology department. The FBI and the contracts of these companies that they are using. Okay, you look at Palantir; they got $1 billion in a decade-long contract with the DoD now, and the FBI having the NIJ, the NIJ, which is the research arm of the DOJ, running a study in exactly what these companies do. So, where I'm going with this, and my question to everybody is, I've been told when we theorize looking at these court documents and we want to speculate on how it could have happened, they go, dude, that's a stretch, Birdie. That's a stretch. And I'll recognize it. It could be a stretch. I don't know. Nobody knows what happens. But we'll jump through all these hoops and we will do all these mental gymnastics to try and make up for a house that at the end of the day, there was minimal blood for it. The timeline makes no sense. Their suspect makes no sense. There's no answers. Everything's sealed and redacted. The plea deal comes out of nowhere. But what would be something that could cause all of those things to not make sense? And people say it might be a forbidden theory, but look at the history of our country and look at what our officials have had a hand in that leads to rights being overstepped. Patriot Act is a perfect example. And you would think, well, that's a little bit different, Birdie. They took down 2 hours and then they got us over into the Middle East. And then we ended up having Marines guard poppy fields, and it maybe played a huge role in the opioid epidemic. Yeah. So they'll do all that, but they won't do a quadruple homicide in Moscow, Idaho to get an entire network of AI, predictive policing, and IgG to try to get you. It's just, that's not that crazy.
You're right, and it's going to go over the heads of some people and be too far. But again, the Iran-Contra guns for drugs thing, it was a huge thing. We got caught.
Yes.
The government got caught selling guns in exchange for being able to smuggle cocaine into the country and make money off of it. And then, like you said, and people don't talk about it a lot, there was a massive opium epidemic after we took over the poppy fields in Afghanistan. You think that's a coincidence? You don't think the U.S. government, through our control of the poppy fields, aren't bringing in dirt cheap opium into the United States, and that's why there's drugs everywhere, because we're literally shipping that shit back to the homeland to make money off of it. But you can think that's crazy conspiracy theory. You can start to realize that we live in corrupt societies and people do shit for money. And so, and along that lines, and I hate to say this because, again, everybody's so sensitive about the victims' families, but isn't it funny that they will shame YouTubers for making a buck off of murders? But Stacey Chapin will go on there and say, I'm going to partner with Othram Labs. I'm going to tell an emotional story and get everybody to cry and weep and then hand over your money. It's like the emotional pitch from church. Play some music, tell them you need to repent and have Jesus, and everybody get my wallet out. They give you all my money. So she comes, gets everybody in an emotional state, get them sobbing, and then how can we make this better? Yeah. Well, you know what? Fund Othram Labs. Fund Othram Labs. So why is that okay for the families to do? Why are they not being accused of selling out for money? I just don't know.
Well, it's interesting, and this is also just blowing my mind. I read this from Sherlock. The Palantir Gideon Predictive Policing Program was funded by the same Idaho Forest Study grant. Are you shitting me right now? Is that in the SEC file? Is that in the filings, Sherlock? Because that's the other thing too. You can look up those grants. You can look up the research grants. I also think there is so much nefarious shit that is hidden in research grants, bro. I think that all of the dirty work goes down in these quote research grants. They do it under the guise of research, but none of the research ever makes any sense. And it's just so. One of the things that I wanted to say to kind of put a bow on this is this feels, and I don't care. Like I said, I feel like everybody has thought this at some point. And I said in the beginning of the stream, it's not trying to be like a hard ass or say like, I got the balls to say it. I think that what it is, DA, is that at this point, with what's continuing to play out in the media, Kohberger being followed in jail, people planting the narrative seed that he's going to get dick in prison and he's going to be murdered or suicided. And now you got Stacey Chapin, who's the spokesperson of this. This is too perfect to be real. Yeah. It's too perfect. Or all of these companies, they are tied back to having government contracts. Is the government telling these companies, if you want to keep your contracts, you keep these people close. You will keep them in the media. They will continue to push this narrative because the truth about what just happened can never come out. And so in a way, this keeps these people that were involved and might have direct evidence and more knowledge as to what happened from blowing the whistle, because now you have a cushy $3 million a year talking salary for the company that the entire world thinks solved your kid's murder. Yeah. Is that a trade-off? Yeah. I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, there's people who don't believe people do things for money, and you know, it's hard to convince them of anything like that. And I'm not saying didn't happen that way. I'm saying you would be remiss to not consider follow the money is where you should always do. You should always follow the money and see, is there a profit motive in doing this? Who's benefiting off this? Who's getting rich off of this? And then you have to ask, is that just good timing for them and they just happen to be in the right place at the right time, or was that planned? You know.
And I'm making that number up. I'm just saying, like, everybody has seen these like ex-politicians or these powerful figures. You look at their speaking fees and it's like, hang on, you got $450,000 for 30 minutes. Like, the money is real and it's big. Yeah. It's big money in these things.
And let me tell you, it was clear to me, Stacey Chapin and Kristen Middleman plan on touring the country, doing what they just did. They're going to keep doing that packaged presentation, going all over America and probably fetching very, very high consulting fees to come in and give a 30-minute or 1-hour speech with emotional plea about how we need more Othram labs, telling the story over and over again about, Thanksgiving and how we can't have Thanksgiving, but we got them in 5 days. That's going to be told over and over again. And I bet you money that they're getting paid good money for that. And again, I want to tie this to the Rex Heuermann thing you talked about just briefly. You know, Asa, the wife of Rex Heuermann in the Long Island serial killer case, didn't talk for the longest time. When she finally came out, she did a document, and they're like, Asa speaks for the first time. And then it's revealed, well, Asa got paid $1 million to do that documentary. So Stacey Chapin didn't talk to anybody for the longest time. Now all of a sudden she's talking. One has to ask, did she get paid? Now the thing is, Othram Labs is a private company, so we don't get to see a lot of their holdings, and probably not going to get to question that. But I bet you there's an NDA between the two of them. I bet you there's a sweet deal. So, yeah.
Excuse me. I was just going to say, I've made it rather clear that I think this is too messy, but it lines up way too clean. But at the end of the day, we have a brand new forensic lab that's ready to prove their tech in real time. You have a knife sheath that just conveniently shows up and is left at the scene. Very sus on when that knife sheath was found. You have a suspect who fits the epitome of a media villain. The epitome of a media villain on day one. And now the cherry on top is that the grieving family member becomes the spokesperson for the very company whose DNA hit and that they got the hit and they sealed the deal. That's a script, damn near, bro.
Right. And I hate to say it, but nothing is more of an emotional appeal than do it for the children. If you keep telling everybody children died, these are people's children, and then get the mother on there because everybody sympathizes with the mother who lost their child. It is a heartstring moment, and it's money. It's money.
And dude, like, it's gaslighting on an industrial scale.
Yeah.
Like, at the end of the day, whether you and I are like just sideways, like way off the rails on this crazy. And you and I are sounding like babbling morons because there's probably people in here that may think that of us. And that's okay. Like everyone's entitled to their opinion. That's one of the benefits of the Hive. We talk about all these theories and we think past the headlines, as I say every night with my disclaimer, because we talk about shit like this. But at the end of the day, whether what you and I just said has zero, let's just say we could look into a crystal ball and we're 0% accurate. Okay. Well, we still have very obvious questions that are not answered about this case that went to a plea deal that the media has now just dropped their nuts on Brian Koberger's face and drug him through the mud for so long that it should be concerning to what if this was happening to you and it was not a high profile case and you don't have resources and behind closed doors and the entire world and the internet doesn't know what's happening to you because they pinged off of a speck of DNA on a knife sheath that wasn't there on the first pass through and they got it off your dad's Q-tip 2,000 miles away. And now the entire world is saying, well, we just put it in everybody's face and collectively the public accepted it. So now let's go do an exciting case. Let's make people forget about what we just did in real time. Let's go get JonBenet Ramsey's killer. You know what I mean?
By the way, as an aside, I want to lighten the mood for a moment. As an aside, and I don't want to name this person's name because I don't want to embarrass them, but I want to lighten the mood just a hair. So I had more than one person that came to CrimeCon to meet me, and I had one of my people that follow the channel that sat with me during a session waiting for it to start. And bless her heart, she's trying to promote my channel. She's talking to everybody in CrimeCon about my channel. And I'm like, I'm not probably real popular at this place. So she strikes up a conversation with somebody beside me and says, what do you think about the Brian Koberger thing? And she's like, oh my God, guy's guilty as hell. I mean, how could you not think that? They literally had his DNA and his car was at the scene. And she's like, well, it's not as easy as that. How could it not be? She says. And then so this person turns to me and goes, bail me out, DA. And I'm like, yeah, fuck you, started that shit. You started, I don't have 200 hours to tell her that, to break her narrative and her worldview. It was hilarious. So I don't mean to pick on my follower, whatever you want to call him, subscriber to the channel, but I was like, what the fuck? What do you mean? You want me to try to change this woman's opinion in a room with 1,000 people who are cheering that, great that they caught Koberger and tell her that she's wrong? I'm not going to do that. I can't.
It's like when we were talking earlier, I said, it needs to have, if I would have gone there, I needed an auctioneer sign. You know how they're when you raise it and you want to up whatever you're about to pay when they're auctioning something off. I would just have a sign that says yes, you are all wrong. And I would just hold that up at every moment that there was something like that. And you and I had talked about next year, it's in November in Vegas. We should go and we should live stream it. And we should, if you sit on the panel, that'd be awesome for you to be up there. And I could just be doing commentary for it as well. And we should really try to make that work because I think there's a good chance that this case will probably still be being brought up, at least in some regards, next year at this time.
And I don't know that I'm really serious about this. Not only would it be very cool for people to meet up in Vegas, because obviously then you got a million things to do. People can go to Vegas, but I wonder if we could get them to give us a small fucking closet, if you will, of just, hey, during one of the breakout sessions, one of the sessions can be for those who are interested to come hear the other side of the narrative, Breaking
news. Two YouTuber conspiracy theorists are drugged through the streets of Vegas. No foul play suspected. Othram Labs proved it.
Right. I mean, who knows? I think there's a fair number of people at CrimeCon who are like us, who are like, yeah, I love CrimeCon, but I wish it wasn't so pro prosecution. Again, it wouldn't be one of these rooms where hundreds of people show up. But if you got 50 people or even 20 people to come in and open their mind at a convention where all you're hearing is one side of the story, it would be cool. So I don't know.
Look at what Discord Don just said too. In Discord, someone said one of the Gonzalez kids got a scholarship from the Othram company. Might need to look into that. I will shit a golden chicken if it comes out that one of them had a scholarship for that.
I heard that too. I've heard that.
Oh my God. Well, DA, that was a great discussion. Speaking of AI, my tinfoil hat conspiracy of the day, this is terrifying. And I'm not sure how familiar you are with AI image generation.
Yeah.
But every now and again, it glitches out, and there seems to be this pattern where it shows humans that look like this, like with the eyes that are really wide-eyed. And this is terribly concerning. It's actually one of the trippiest things that since I've streamed and I start finishing with the tinfoil hat conspiracy today. This one kind of shook me to my core a little bit, where I'm like, God, that's really creepy. I kind of wish I didn't just learn this.
Generate that.
Yeah. So it says a glitch in AI art could be the same as a render error, but in the base of our reality. And so what does that mean? It means AI art models are not creating from nothing. They're pulling from massive data sets, images, text, hidden pattern recognitions. So when they glitch and they're showing distorted faces, it's argued, along with other like impossible limbs or symbols that don't match the prompt. People have theorized that is not just bad math. It's actually leaking, like a leakage from realities our brains are not wired to see, that AI has picked up on these patterns. So if we are in a simulation, then AI would just be a mirror of that code. So when it over and over and over across multiple different AI image generators, not just one, this theory is that when it shows a human with the wide saucer eyes, that is what the quote simulation would see us as looking like. But we are not going to be looking that way in obviously in real life. So the creepiest angle is that these entities are reoccurring. Like that to me is trippy, that across multiple prompts, nothing to do with people, these entities will show up in images.
Yeah.
That's wild.
Where are they pulling that from?
Yeah. Where are they pulling that from? And it's like, are we in a simulation? I have no idea. But DA, I want you to give your quick closing thoughts on what is it that you think, like, knowing what we know now seeing all the things with Othram, I sometimes struggle with, like, are we ever able to figure out who committed this atrocity? And does figuring out that crime, does it even free Brian Koberger at this point? Is freeing Brian Koberger, like, if it's an impossible thing and they're never going to let it happen, you want to talk a bigger operation where they're going to Epstein him in prison, like, what really would be the fire alarm that you'd want to pull it on? I have my answer, and that is you should not have a tragedy allow people to emotionally palate and overreach on very clear American rights, at least in America. I know we have people outside the hive, or outside of America in the hive, and then rub it in your face to profit after you just shamed everybody for only really trying to find the truth, because there was very clear and obvious holes in this narrative and evidence and the court docs and all the weird coincidences that don't seem to have an answer.
Yeah. I wanted to add one thing I forgot that I wanted to mention. Early on we talked about the extra blood on the back of the knife sheath, and I want to point out something I would love for people to do, and it'll never happen. And that should, in my mind, give you a clue about something's wrong in this case. And here it is. The rumors about Kopaka have been out for years. People lose their mind when you bring it up, which should be a red flag number one. Why are everybody so afraid to ask a question? There's a lot of reasons to believe that, but yet people lose their mind when you ask a question. Now, follow me out with this logic. During the alternate, and I'll try to be brief on the soapbox. In Idaho, there's a less standard for putting somebody on trial for murder than there is for bringing in an alternative suspect. You just have to have some evidence that it's the right guy to put them on trial for murder. But to have an alternate perp, you must prove that the alternate perp actually was there directly related to the crime. Keep in mind, Bill Thompson told us we can't place Brian Koberger in the house. We have no connection to him and the girls. We have no connection to him in the crime scene. You can't do that with an alternative suspect, because that's not allowed in Idaho. An alternative suspect must be directly related to the crime. Koberger cannot be directly related to the crime because it's easier to have a suspect than it is an alternative suspect. Now, let me do the last thing. The reason why the alternative suspects were laughed out by Hitler was because they took the four main suspects. One of them was Showalter, one of them was Jack DeCoeur, one of them was Cole Brandenburger or whatever, and one of them was, I don't remember who the fucking fourth one was. But the point being is they had four alternative suspects, and he laughed the whole thing out in part because we know the killer arrived in a car and those people were within walking distance. Let's set that for aside. What they did do, though, is they DNA tested those 4 people. They got buccal swabs from every single one of the alternative suspects, and they tested it against the blood on the back of the knife sheath. And while they can't definitively say something, they can say this. We can say definitively that you can exclude that person as having been that left that blood. Let me tell you what they're not telling you. You can also exclude Brian Koberger.
Yes.
Brian Koberger did not leave that blood on the back of the knife sheath, because if it was his blood, they would have been telling us that for 2.5 years. There was blood spots on the wall that they tested against the 4 alternative suspects. And they said it can be definitively proven that blood is not suspect 1, 2, 3, or 4, your alternative suspect. So we're ruling them out. They didn't do that with Brian Koberger. It didn't also match him.
Yeah.
What we know for sure is that there is blood of another perpetrator all over that house, and they totally ignored it because the standard is higher for bringing in an alternative suspect. Now, my final thought. I would love to see them take a hair sample from a hairbrush of Brent Kopaka and test it against the DNA on the back of that sheath and see if he can be excluded. I'd like to see that.
Wow. See, that would be remarkable. Why doesn't Othram put their tech to the test with that and shut all of us internet conspiracy theorists up, right? Why don't you prove it to us?
Would we trust? Would we trust their answer?
Hell no, probably not. No. But then, you want to know what? As you're saying that, then I'm just like, God damn, DA, this is why I could talk to you all night. Because as you're saying that, I'm like, wow, it's almost like it's too perfect that you're going to have just a little bit of a degree of separation that Koberger or Kopaka lives across state line in Washington that WSU is getting this funding for. And it just so happens to occur right on the other border town in Idaho, where that law for the trial would be, to where they could really run the narrative crazy because they can't use that legally with the alt perps. Give me a break.
It is crazy that there's a higher level of standard to bring in an alternate perpetrator than there is for the suspect on trial for their life.
There is too many things that make Moscow, Idaho, the perfect place for something like this to happen. While if the FBI was trying to do some sort of study, or if a company was, think of this. All these dirty, corrupt people got called out publicly. So the FBI might also kind of win. It's a win, 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 win when you want to talk about policing the public. Now, while we are going to see corruption, if we see it, they see it. There doesn't have to be a big reveal for people to wake up to the fact and be talking about it. So you had said that last week on the stream, and after thinking about it longer, you're like, but what's the big reveal? That would only work if there's a big reveal. Maybe, but look at what's already kind of happened. People come to those conclusions themselves. And is that more effective? Obviously, we would all like them to come out and be like, hey, everybody, okay, if you did shed tears, or if you really thought that any of this was real, it wasn't. We wanted to run a predictive policing AI study on the American public to see how much bullshit we could spoon feed you. Unfortunately, you all failed terribly worse than any projected charts ever said that the public might fail. And so it's like, we award you no points, and may God have mercy on your souls. Like,
I love that line. We are all now dumber for having listened to that.
Literally,
I award you no points.
Literally. So, but I just want to get through some of these super chat questions quick, DA. So if you got anything to chime in on them when I put them up, please do. Big Red said tinfoil bromance. That is the shit. Yes. Yes, absolutely. Adrian, 1984. Thank you so much. Shizzo47 says, I cannot believe she's the CEO of the company that got BK's ancestor DNA. This is absolutely crazy. Gets weirder by the day. Yeah.
Well, she married David. I mean, that's a husband and wife team. David was the big guy. She was into the same field, but they got married and did that company together. So
right. That's also like, oh God. See, I'm going to bite my tongue on that one. 4 says, ever wonder why the defense or their expert haven't talked? I do wonder in general, would there be something if a defense attorney tried to come to Brian's defense? Do you think there would be something where an attorney that's wanting to, go take up his appeal, rather, right? Or try to say he was wrongfully convicted? Is it a stretch to think that a law firm that would probably take that on is going to be a larger entity that probably has worked in some regards with the FBI, to where the FBI, if they told them, hey, we understand you want to seriously investigate this case. However, this is an ongoing investigation. We are looking into X, Y, and Z. So now you have to sign an NDA before you walk out of this office. So we're going to frame you with the same DNA we just framed this guy with. Like,
right.
I don't think it's a stretch. They would know to keep their mouths shut, you know?
Yeah.
And so Linda, thank you so much. And Mama Tata, that's what we were just saying. Yes, the 23andMe and all that is just, it's crazy. And Blue Eyed Candy says, I can't help but question the Golden State Killer being convicted after decades by the same method. He was an old man convicted. Well, and didn't refresh my memory on this. I could look it up, but for the sake of time and just conversation, didn't they get it? Didn't the DNA get swabbed off like an exposed sidewalk that they went back and looked to like where this crime had been, and they swiped that and they said there was like trace amounts from decades. It was the most crazy shit ever, wasn't it?
Yeah, I can't remember. But
does anybody know? Yeah.
I was while they, if you get that answer, interrupt me. I was gonna tell you something before. Holy shit! Did I already forget it? Yeah, no, I didn't forget it. There was ringers, by the way. I meant to say. I said a little bit. There was ringers in the audience that said,
"This is crazy."
Hey, there's ringers. They literally get done, and the first question from the audience is, "How can we get out more Othram labs across the country so that police departments can get this everywhere?" I'm glad you asked. Petition your senator. Ask him to give us funding. Get this though. Here's the one that drove me nuts. A lady got up and she said, I just want everybody to know that you can voluntarily put your DNA into the databases. So I recommend everybody go get your DNA into the databases. And I was like, oh my God, I could hear the sheep bleeding now. Let's put our DNA into the system so you can get us and put us at any crime scene in America you want. It was fucking crazy.
I see. Maybe maybe that headline of YouTube conspiracy theorists drug through the street of after Crime Con, because I would have lost my mind. I'd be like, no, don't do it. That like an angry protester, like getting torn out of the thing. Like, don't do it. It doesn't matter if you think you were part Viking or you want to know your lineage. They're going to use it against you. These people are demons.
Right. Right. Yeah.
I don't know, dude. But yeah, I'd love that you called that out, because that's something from back in the day when I was selling for a certain company with certain products. There would be plants and planted questions very openly talked about on the company side. And then you'd go to a trade show, and after a speaker, it's like, if it's a little bit quiet or if you want to gear it, that person's kind of activated. It's not a stretch. It's normal. It's just like, it's very normal to have a spokesperson paid for by a company where they're not coming straight out and saying, this is the product I use, or these people are paying me to use the product. Rather, this product has gotten me really great results. And if you know somebody that's a customer of yours, you're of course going to want to empower them to go out and give the live review of how good your company is. So it's not what we're saying is shady that Othram would do this. From a 40,000 foot view, they're not the only company that's done it. What I'm trying to say. All
I can say is I'm a bit of a conspiracy theorist, and this is where I go with it. And I know some people say that's fucking crazy, but if law enforcement will break the law to get a bad guy, because they're all about convictions, and believe me, I can make a strong argument about that's all they're about, is making a conviction. If that's what they do, then I would never want to give them my DNA. So if they decide I might be the guy, they can be like, we already got Lee's DNA. We'll just stick it at the crime scene and we've got him. So if I voluntarily give them my DNA, how do you know that doesn't just end up where they need you to be? Because, well, I'm pretty sure it's him. I'll just make sure there's a little bit of DNA at that scene. And what jury is going to even know? Because you know what? 95% of the things get plead out anyways, and they'll never see how that data. And even if they did see it, the jury is baffled by science. They'll be like, whatever. If you say it's his DNA, it's got to be his DNA.
Yes, so. And that's like, you want to know what else? We had talked prior to the right after the tinfoil hat of the conspiracy today, that I said, what would be like the overarching thing that's like, sound the alarm on it, sound the alarm on this. If we can't, quote, get Koberger out of prison, what would it be? What you just said sparked my memory into what I was going to say. And that is, just because we are in the process of learning that this technology exists, because it's just beginning to be put out into the public eye, that does not mean that it's not very real. That does not mean that there's probably a nefarious back channel rather easily if somebody wanted to use it that way. And just because you don't understand something or you don't know that it exists does not mean that it does not exist. It could be extremely real. And there's a lot of technology, especially with AI. Buckle up, because I'm telling you, in the next 5 to 7 years, we are going to see some wild and weird shit, to the point where Palantir, I was telling you this backstage, DA. Palantir, the company that makes autonomous drones for wars, they're about to surveil our entire country and spy on their citizens. Their CEO is also giving a 4-part series on the Antichrist. Okay. And I was listening to the Rogan episode, and the guy saying this goes, he couldn't say it was like, yes, I own Palantir, and you know, we make autonomous drones for warfare overseas, and we're going to have a predictive policing surveillance that probably is going to end up overstepping America's rights. But I also have recently gotten into this hobby of telling everybody about the Antichrist. You could have said tennis. You could have said fucking pickleball. It's the Antichrist. Are you joking me? Like, why are the alarms not going off all around us here? Like,
yeah.
Oh,
it's
my
crazy.
God.
It's crazy, man. It's crazy.
So, I mean, these people are like, I hate to say it. It doesn't mean I don't know any of them. You don't know any of them, but it sounds rather psychotic. It's like, how do you get somebody that just also happens to be their passion in their free time is the Antichrist? And who's one of the most powerful people and companies out of the come up right now ever?
Like, do I want that guy running drones over the cities of America?
If you were watching a movie, you would probably think to yourself at one point, like, that guy, I bet he's the fucking bad guy. Like, that guy, is he the Antichrist? Like, what is he trying to do? Because, so, nonetheless, DA, that was an awesome stream, brother. Thank you for popping up here. That is wild shit from CrimeCon, and I'm stoked that you were able to share it here in the Hive with everybody. To everybody that did give a super chat, thank you so much. I go live every weeknight at 7 p.m. Central. On Mondays, Devil's Advocates is a guest each week, which is always a blast. So if you guys like this, please hit the subscribe button, press the thumbs up on your way out, and I hope that everybody has a great night's sleep and goes out and crushes their day tomorrow. DA, any closing thoughts?
Just if you had gone to CrimeCon, you could have gotten one of these cool hats, and then you could have supported the new movement in America. But anyways, no, I got nothing. Thank you for letting me come on from Ogden, Utah, halfway home. I'm looking forward to finishing my drive off. Oh, by the way, last thing.
Okay.
We got John Ray supposedly going on with his questions and answers, and we haven't teased this at all. So
I don't know how we forgot about that.
Fuck. It's because I've been at CrimeCon and I forgot. I'm like, oh my God, I'm going to get back and literally. Now, to be fair, Birdie, I reached out to John Ray, and they haven't reached back to confirm that he's going to be there. So I'm kind of on hold the day before or 2 days before we're supposed to go live with them. So I guess we'll figure it out in the next 24 hours.
Yeah, and so just so everybody's aware, for the folks that are in here, so DA has talked about how he interviewed John Ray.
John, yeah.
In a pre-recorded interview. So our plan was to go we're going to go watch the premiere in and on Devil's Advocates channel. However, DA is working to get John Ray then at 7 p.m. or whenever the time is afterwards to get John Ray, DA, and myself this Wednesday to do a live Q&A after what we had just watched in the interview. And that is in regards to the Long Island serial killer now, or I guess formerly known as that, but it was formerly known as a Gilgo Beach. Now it's known as Lisk. Yep.
Lisk. Yeah. So, it's gonna be amazing. The premiere is worth watching. Birdie and I will have great questions for John. It will be really, really cool if we can pull it off. John does have, by the way, 2 murder things going on right now that he's doing. So his schedule is big. So I think we can pull it off, but I hope we do, because it's going to be awesome.
Yeah, it'd be epic. So
if not, I should do the questions and answers anyways on that, whether John can show up or not. But
yeah, well, let's plan on that, and I'll post about it, Hive, in the Discord, and then I'll also post about it too on YouTube and whatnot. But nonetheless, Hive, you guys rock. Best chat on the internet. I'm I'm claiming the #1 contrarian thinking live stream on the internet. Don't know if that statistic exists. It will exist in our minds because you guys rock. And DA, you also are the man. I look forward to chatting with you each Monday night. So thank you for your time. And with that, Hive, I will see you all tomorrow at 7 Central. Cheers.
Later.
Thanks, DA.
Birds flying high, you know how I feel. Sun in the sky, you know how I feel. Breeze drifting on by, you know how I feel. It's a new dawn, it's a new day, it's a new life.